Hi, today's book review is Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. This book really surprised me. I thought I knew who he was. I thought he was like a free-spirited hippie movie star who liked to be barefoot and shirtless on the beach. And that is sort of a description of him that is accurate. He definitely talks about being barefoot a lot in the book. But I was surprised by his childhood. He was definitely attractive and social. He had, a good childhood for a movie star in that regard. I mean, he was popular and won like an award for being the best looking, most handsome guy in his high school. But his family life is, I would call it kind of violent. There were fistfights, and he referred to it as tough love. It didn't really seem to affect him negatively. He told the story in the book about how his mom actually encouraged him to plagiarize at one point, and he did, and he won an award. So his parents seemed like they were okay with lying, cheating, and stealing as long as you didn't get caught. And you would think that somebody who was raised like that would turn out to be a jerk when they're grown up, but he definitely seems to have figured out that those things were wrong and that he shouldn't have done them. And as an adult, he has apparently a good set of values and morals. So it's just interesting that even though he wasn't necessarily taught the right thing as a child, he grew up to be a good person. He's definitely a deeper thinker than I was aware of. I knew that he sort of had a philosophical bent, but throughout the book, there are these little Post-its taped in. They're not really taped in. I mean, it's all printed on the page, but it's just little things that he wrote. Sometimes it's things that other people wrote, but most of it is his own writing. Sometimes there's a couple of pages that are really tiny print. He has very small printing, and it's hard to read. But apparently he's kept journals for about 35 years. So he's definitely introspective and more thoughtful than I realized. He is a seeker and sort of nomadic at points in his life. I guess in his 20s and 30s, he traveled around in an RV. That surprised me. I would have thought that he would have bought a house in Hollywood and just stayed there and, hung out by the beach. But he definitely, he didn't plant roots right away, not until he found his wife. But he traveled around a lot. He had a few different places that he called home. The other thing that surprised me is that he drank as much as he indicated in the book, because he looks like he's in such good shape and he's always so lean that I'm surprised that he would go out and drink. I would think that he would have had to be very regimented and not eat or drink a lot of alcohol to stay in such good shape. So I'm not sure if maybe my impression is that he drank more than he actually did, but maybe it's just that in the book he's telling the interesting stories, and those were times when he was drinking and meeting people and making friends on the road. Another thing that surprised me, I think the only movie that he's ever been in that I've seen is Dallas Buyers Club, and I knew he was really thin for that role. I didn't realize that he had to lose, I think he said like 50 pounds for that role. And how do you lose 50 pounds when you're already lean? He had to have been extremely dedicated to do that. I try to lose 5 pounds. It takes me months and months, but he lost 50 even though he didn't even have it to lose. So this book was definitely surprising. I thought it was going to be a lot of stories about Hollywood and movie stars and sort of just name dropping. He didn't do too much of that. I mean, he talked about people. He mentioned specific people like producers and directors when he was talking about certain films, but it's more about just, it almost doesn't even seem like he's a Hollywood star, because he doesn't talk about other actors and actresses very much. He just talks more about what he's thinking about and what he learned throughout his life, and he tells a lot of good stories about his travels. He went to South America and Africa, and he explains in the book why he went there. It just seems like he's at home wherever he goes in the world, which I thought was interesting. Like, he doesn't seem bothered by the fact that he didn't have an address for a couple of years. You know, wherever he went, he seemed to make friends. He's definitely a very social person, enjoyed getting to know people. Yeah, so definitely, he does not seem like the typical Hollywood actor. He does talk about living in a hotel for a while. I don't know how long it was, maybe a couple of years. And then he sort of lived the Hollywood lifestyle, and he just kind of skimmed over that part. He didn't talk about it too much. So I guess that's not one of the phases of his life that he felt really influenced him. He definitely talks more about when he was traveling with his dog in the RV, and, you know, his South American trip and his African trip. So I give this book 4.5 stars out of 5. Definitely interesting to kind of get a look at just anybody's life, really. You know, somebody who has kept journals for 35 years and, you know, can tell you what they were thinking at different points in their life. Some of them are dated, some of them aren't. You know, it's just kind of interesting. It made me think, actually, that I would like to read the life stories of just average people, you know, not politicians or celebrities, just normal people and what they've learned throughout their life. I think that would be an interesting book. I think everybody has a story to tell, and just because he's a celebrity doesn't mean that he's got all celebrity stories in here. It's actually a lot more relatable than I thought it would be. So once again, it's Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Read it, pick it up at your library, or buy a copy, read it, and let me know what you think in the comments.